NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, presents Aeronautics and Space Report.
From around the country, large components are finally checked and shipped to their last earthly destination, Kennedy Space Center, Florida. But these are not ordinary machines. They are the stuff that space flights are made of, brought together for the next manned flight into space, Apollo 7. Here, the first stage of the Saturn 1B rocket, which will initially boost the 3 astronauts off the launch pad. It traveled by barge from Alabama to Mississippi and finally to the Kennedy Space Center. Both the Apollo spacecraft and the second stage came from California, flown in by huge transport planes that come apart for loading and unloading. All the components were then stacked, one upon the other, to form a complete unit.
The flight of Apollo 7 will bring us the long-awaited climax of the Saturn 1.
This is Dr. Werner von Braun, director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, where most of the Saturn rocket development took place.
Original version of the Saturn 1, and then with the upgraded Saturn 1, or Saturn 1B as some people call it. All of these 14 flights were completely successful. So it is with a great deal of confidence that we are looking forward to Apollo 7, which by all odds will be the most important flight mission ever flown on a Saturn 1. Now, what accounts for the success of a bird such as the Saturn 1? I'd like to use one word here. It is team effort. In the case of the Saturn 1B, this team effort refers to personnel both working for the government and for the contractors involved.
Also part of the team, the men who will make the flight. Astronauts Wally Schirra, Don Isley, and Walter Cunningham. Among them, they have logged hundreds of hours of training, including make-believe space trips in simulators and emergency procedures at sea and at the pad. Their rocket and spacecraft will help qualify Apollo for 500,000-mile journeys to the moon and back. This will be a time for checking out the operations of the manned spaceflight tracking network. 14 ground stations, 4 ships, and 5 aircraft located around the world will keep track of Apollo 7 in space. All told, nearly 4,000 people and 2 million miles of circuitry will be involved. At the Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston, Flight Director Glyn Lunny describes the mission.
The primary purpose of the Apollo 7 flight is to check out and qualify the spacecraft systems in the Command Service Module vehicle. This flight will be a low Earth orbital mission concentrating on the life support systems, the propulsion systems, and the control systems. Now, in order to accomplish this, we will fly what we call an open-ended mission. What this means is we have a number of tests scheduled on these systems over the course of the flight, and we will fly as long as safety and the consumables on board permit, the limiting one being the oxygen available to the crew. During the course of the flight, we will accomplish as many things as we can early in the flight so that any earlier termination, earlier than the 10 days maximum, would allow us to have the qualifying data as much as possible on the spacecraft systems.
The rocket, the spacecraft, the men, all are nearly ready for the upcoming 10-day mission of Apollo 7, this country's next manned spaceflight.
This has been an Aeronautics and Space Report presented by NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration.